Well, Lori's here and we're going to try and do Gamers Inc. together. The very first thing I'm going to do is start with a blank Excel workbook, and I'm going to label my worksheet in Gamers Inc. And we're going to call it Capital Budgeting Incremental Analysis. And this is our original worksheet. I've read ahead to see all of the things that I might want to include, so I will show you where we're going to put in some things ahead of time because we've looked through the document and we have an idea what scenarios we might want to run. So let's begin with our very first inputs. The very first thing is the cost of advertising, and let's go ahead and make column A a little wider, and our cost of advertising is $3 million. And we can format that to 3 million. Next, we've got our price, and I'm skipping over units sold. We'll get to that in just a second. We've got our price and our variable costs per unit. And we better, oops, sorry about that. Label this price per unit. And we're going to give ourselves some years here. So I'm going to give myself an extra row. And then I'm going to give myself year 0 because that's when we're making the investment ahead of time. And we're going to actually project 5 years worth of incremental impact from our investment in this advertising plan to raise awareness of our Gamers Inc. fabulous Seaside series. So next we've got our units sold, and that's per year. And in year 1 we've got 30,000, year 2 25,000, same in that, year 3 20,000 in year 4, and again 20,000 in year 5. However, we know that we're going to be running best, likely, and worst scenarios, or best and worst scenarios. So I'm going to do an adjustment to units sold factor, and I'm going to put it as oops, sorry about that, 100%. And then I'm going to do my adjusted units sold, so that when I do need to this information, when I do need to change my units sold by taking up 20% or down 20% for my best and my worst scenarios, I'll be able to do so easily. So I pick up my units sold and then I multiply it by my adjustment to units sold percentage. And we know we're going to want to keep using that specific cell. So I'm going to highlight it and then I'm going to hit F4, which is going to anchor it, and then I'm going to hit return. And now I should be able to pull it across, copy it all the way across, and it is picking up the 100%. But let's double check that. I take it to 110. Yep, it changes. So let's drop it back to 100%, which is what we want. Now we can start working on our incremental impact. So we have incremental revenue, and that is our units sold, our adjusted units sold, times our price, which we have failed to put in. Let's go ahead and put in our price. It is $45 per year, so we highlight that, grab the corner, and drag it across. And our cost is $15. Our variable cost per unit is $15. And again, we can drag that across. Now our incremental revenue, let's put an E on that. So I hit F2, and then I'm able to add the E. Take it all the way across. Let's give ourselves some commas on these, but we probably don't need parts, decimal points. And our incremental cost of goods sold, or variable cost, is going to equal our adjusted units sold. Make sure we pick up adjusted units sold times our variable cost. And we again can bring that formula right across. Next we have our incremental gross profit, and we'll call it GP, and we know that is our revenue minus our cost of goods sold, and we can carry that right across too. And all of these are dollars, so let's go ahead and format them as dollars. Well, we look good. I think we're going to go up and do our price per unit and format it so that we have cents there. So let's put a dollar sign on. There we go. And that looks great. Next, we're going to look at our operating profits. So we need a line for investments, right? And we know that we've got an investment here of $3 million. So we're going to use the plus sign or the equal sign and go up and pick that up. And we don't have an investment in any of these other years. If we did, we could put it in there. Next, we're going to do our incremental operating profit. We'll call it OP. And that is simply equal to our incremental gross profit minus our investment. And in this case, our incremental revenue, we have no units sold and no variable cost. So we have absolutely nothing going on in revenue, cost of goods sold, or incremental gross profit. So that's a 0. We can carry this across and we will have our cash flows or our incremental operating profits. The next thing we want to do is look at the present value of each one of those, because we know, let's go add a line up here, Alt, Enter row, and this is our cost of capital. And we know from our example that this is 6%. So we put in 6%. And that's the discount rate we're going to use when we do our present value. And it will also be our threshold rate that we use for interpreting our internal rate of return. So we're going to use our formula equals PV, parenthesis, and here we pick up our rate. And this is where we're going to highlight that, because that rate, we're going to always want to use that cell. So we're going to anchor it by highlighting it and hitting F4 so that a dollar sign goes in front of the B and again in front of the C. Then we can hit our arrow key and hit comma. The number of periods, we're going to pick that up right up here with the year. And then the payment is always 0. And then the future value is negative incremental operating profit. So our present value for our outlay is negative $3 million, and that's correct. So let's go ahead and drag that across. And let's do a reasonability check. $900,000, 1 year out, 6% discount rate, probably worth about $850,000 now. So that seems right. And by the time we're out to year 5, $600,000 is worth less than $500,000 in present value terms. We're going to skip a line and we're going to do NPV. And our net present value is just the sum of all our present values, including year 0. So we're going to hit the sum sign and drag it across to highlight everything we want to include, hit return, and we're all done with that. Our IRR is using the IRR formula. Keep in mind here, though, that we want to use the incremental operating profit line, not the discounted line. You want to use the non-discounted line of incremental operating profit when you're calculating your internal rate of return. We've got 7%, but we suspect that on the quiz we would be asked to move out at least 1 decimal point, so let's move out 2 just to be sure. And then finally, let's tackle our return on investment. And the 3 components of that are return, investment, and then you can calculate your ROI. In this case, we're going to calculate the undiscounted. So we're going to use, again, this incremental operating profit line when calculating our return. And our return is simply the sum of all of the undiscounted cash flows. We spent $3 million, we got $900, $750, $750, $600, and $600 back. What does that equal? Well, we do sum, and we know that it is worth $600,000. That's what we've made. Our investment, we simply use a plus or equal sign and go up and pick up our cost of advertising of $3 million, and our ROI is equal to our return divided by our investment, which in this case comes out to be 0.2. Let's put that in percentage terms and give ourselves a couple extra decimal points. And I'm going to stop here because I want to make 2 separate videos. This one creates our original spreadsheet. I'm going to go ahead and label it original. And then I will come back and we'll use this original spreadsheet to do the 6 additional worksheets that are called for in our example.